I like it how you have this very unique experience for property manager. You basically run a full circle of investment into real estate in your market.
It's a challenging business. It's very interesting. It's not dull. This market is a little bit tricky. Some of them are a little bit more risky. Some of them are less. So you have to be prepared for private inspections. They try to sell that house right away for a little bit more money than they offered you.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today's guest is not only a real estate expert but also a great friend and my personal property manager. Joining me is Mike Balezine, a seasoned property manager, general contractor, and a real estate investor based in New Jersey. Mike's journey is incredible. He started as a handyman, worked his way up to managing full-scale renovations, and now oversees over 80 rental units, flip homes, and continues to expand his own real estate portfolio. Mike, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, man. I wanted to do it for a long time already, but I'm happy we finally found the time to get together and talk about your journey.
Yeah, you know how it is with time in the business and with everything else that has to do with it.
No, for sure. Okay, let's start from the beginning. How did you start? How did you choose this career, contractor, handyman, and switch into real estate? In general, how did you start in real estate?
Well, I must say it kind of shows me. I was working in a shipping company, and that's when I met my wife. And she was kind of in it already. She was somewhat of an assistant to a property manager and a realtor. And she was driving around, taking pictures, doing like BPOs, helping out the tenants. And every once in a while, you know, we would talk, and she would say, okay, yeah, this needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed. You know, she was always talking about these maintenance issues and tenant turns. And I was at my job, and then I thought about it. I'm like, hey, I could be doing this on the side just for a little extra income. So we set it up, and at nights or on the weekends, I would go and help repair some of these properties, help do these turns, paint here, fix there. And it got to a point where I thought, okay, this could be a full-time thing where, a job alone was not cutting it. And I found more potential in doing these handyman repairs. I started with that.
How did you learn how to do all this stuff? Did you just DIY everything, try to do everything and you just figure it out?
Well, before I worked, I have a very rich background, if we can call it that. I did construction right out of high school. I did siding, I did this, so I had a pretty big construction background before I went to work for a shipping company. So I decided to utilize all that and take it to the next level instead of being in a 9-to-5.
Okay, and how many years was that when it started to be your gig, a side gig as a handyman?
It took me about 4 months before I realized that this could turn full time, and I just pulled the plug.
Was it like 20 years ago? Was it like 15 years ago?
That one. I would say around 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay. So you started doing handyman, and what point you decided, hey, let me get my crew. I can get into full-scale renovations. I can get my license and I can work on real projects.
And in about 6 to 8 months, I figured that I needed help. I had a lot more requests. I had a lot more work coming in, so I needed help. I started hiring help. I partnered up with my father-in-law, who was also doing handyman work, and he was actually managing his properties. He had 3 or 4 properties at the time. So I was kind of looking at what he was doing, and he taught me some of these things in the local market. How to paint, how to do it efficiently when it's actual unit turns, not just general construction. And little by little, I started hiring help, getting more projects. Then I got introduced to a lot of people here and there. And at one point, I got introduced to a person who was doing a lot of flips. That was the only thing he was doing. And he offered me to do one complete project. And, always say yes. So I said yes and took on that project. And 1 house, 2 houses, 3 houses that I done for him, I learned from him. I saw what he was doing. I was looking at the things he was paying attention to. Bathrooms, kitchens, that's the most important thing to value add. That's what he was
focusing on in his
that's what he was focusing on. Career. Yep. And I learned from him. I was noticing how he dealt with the township, how he was going about the projects, even rebuilding, moving walls, things like that, expanding. Basically, major components of a successful value add project.
So you learn all the tips and tricks from a successful flipper. And what was the next step? Did you decide to flip to make your own first project, or were you just continuing getting all those flipper jobs and continue on your, flipping contractor gig?
Yeah. So me and my father-in-law, we saw how it could be. We saw what he was doing, and we decided to try it ourselves. So he sold one of his rentals, and we used that money to buy our first flip project. That turned out to be very successful. We made around, that was back in 2017, I believe. On our first one, we made around $60,000 on one flip. The prices were weird back then. And we used some of that money to begin our own portfolio. I used some of that money to buy a property for me and my wife. So we partnered up and we got a property that way. We used private lending. The same lender that we used to buy our first flip, because another friend of mine introduced me to him. So this is how it works. It's networking. It's one person knows another person. You just have to continue talking to all these people.
At one point, did you decide that, hey, I don't want to just flip the properties. Let me start building my portfolio?
Well, while I was doing all of that, while we were flipping, at the same time, I already had clients from my maintenance past, because I was still doing maintenance work. I was still doing unit turns, and I had investor clients, and I saw what they were doing. I saw how they had rentals, and at the same time, my father-in-law had rentals. I knew there was income there. That's what made me think, okay, I can keep building forever, but I'd like to have a passive side income. So that's when I decided that we needed to explore that avenue.
Is it a really passive income, property management?
Owning properties with the proper property manager is passive income.
So while you had your clients on a maintenance, you got offered the position of property manager for them, right? Did I get it correctly? And then you decided, hey, I'm doing this work already for them. I see what they do for renting this property. Say, I know the numbers, and I'm gonna do it myself.
Well, yeah, I was already the go-to guy to see what's going on, to check on the property, even to deliver notices to tenants. Somebody wasn't paying rent, I would deliver the notices. And at that point, especially when my father-in-law sold one of his rentals, I thought to myself, okay, I could be the one that helps him sell it. The next one, I could get a real estate license. So I went and I got a real estate license, and that allowed me to expand into property management. Then I was able to legally collect rent. Then I was able to legally show properties. Because before I started doing that, every once in a while, a property owner would ask you, hey, can you open the door for this guy? Oh, can you help me with this? So I kind of knew what it was already. I was already showing properties, so I decided to make it all, legal and right.
Yeah, it makes
sense. And
all
of the pieces just came together at one point.
Yeah. And so moving forward today, how many rental properties do you have, rental units or buildings, and what does it look like? And where you're located in Trenton, New Jersey, right? Do you have any properties? Perfect. Capital of New Jersey. Woohoo!
Yes. So between me, my wife, and my father-in-law, we have around 10 properties, nine single family, and one multifamily that we just finished, and we're working on refinancing that, because we try to use the BRRRR method. Value add and recycle the money over and over.
Yeah, makes sense. And for our listeners, can you explain what is BRRRR method and how exactly do you recycle that money?
The most important part is buying below market value. You have to find that good deal. So you buy it cheap, you fix it up, you rent it out, and then you refinance. And because you bought it very cheap, by repairing it the right way, you get a lot of equity in it. And when you refinance, the money that was put in goes back into your pocket as a loan, but it goes back into your pocket and you can use it again to do the same thing.
Absolutely. And so as a loan, as a refinance, how does the refinance process work? How much time does it need to pass from the purchase of the building till you can refinance? And what is your process on that?
Well, usually most banks like between 6 months to 12 month seasoning periods. Other lenders, they can work on shorter terms. So the important part is getting it done quick and renting it out right away. So no time is wasted, and you don't waste a lot of money on holding costs, meaning paying for that first original loan that you got it with.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we went through the cycle with you. I think you single-handedly renovated 30 of my apartments, roughly somewhere on that figure. And we did it in the 6 months lifespan. We just bought, built, and renovated, refinanced, bought, built, and renovated, and financed. That was a fun time. We were rushing before the rates started spiking, and we luckily
Definitely.
we were in time. I remember the first building that you weren't in the picture yet, but we were renovating. It was the first duplex. Took us 8 months, over budget, way over budget. It's when I started my investment journey in 2018. I refinanced, everything's good, and it's success story. In the end of the day, we took our money back and we put in another building. But to contrast, the last project that we completed with you, it was 2-bedroom apartment in a 6-unit building, and we completed it in 2 weeks, and everything was done there. We're talking about sheetrock, talking about kitchens, floors, bathroom, all the appliances, from up to down up, and it was our record time for everything completed done. But and we had it by the 2 week timeline. You already had a tenant for it, so we swish it, and we had refinance. We had appraisal, I think, a week later, coming to it, and it was perfectly timed execution. And
Yeah, that will work.
Back to your point, is it perfectly timed? It's very important that you kind of know when you need to be in certain stages, so your appraisal will come along, and you can push this process to the finish line. But hey, listen, let's come back to your renovation business before your journey on ownership or landlord. I think I did rough estimates. You should have renovated by this time already hundreds of apartments across New Jersey. And what are your biggest lessons when you're doing some renovations for people? I'm not talking about patch and paint kind of jobs. I'm talking about full renovations for apartments. What do you think was most cost efficient for people to tackle, and what was most beneficial for appraisal?
Yes. So when you're doing the BRRRR method, you have to keep in mind the appraisal. The appraisal always looks at kitchens and always looks at bathrooms. But at the same time, you can't overkill. If you go too expensive on certain materials or certain finishes, it eats your budget, but it doesn't pay back, because you still have to stay within your market limits. You can't have golden toilets in a C-class suburb area.
I think it's important to mention the value add piece, right? In a renovation, as a contractor, I need to advise people how they can maximize the value from the building. For example, they have a den in their room, and if the room allows and has enough space by local regulations, it is possible to add closet to the space, and now you have a full bedroom. If it has 2 windows, there's some requirements for that, but I think the value add piece is the most important part there.
Correct. Sometimes you come across properties that have wasted square footage, so converting extra space into a bedroom would be a perfect example of it, and it happens a lot more often than you think.
So how many times throughout your career you were able to create this additional value through a bedroom or through some unusable space, like patio, I don't know, covered patio, like lodge?
Well, we actually have one with my father-in-law where we had exactly that. We had a covered porch in the back of the house, and we were able to turn it into another bedroom. So that house became, it was bought 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and it became 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, which created a lot of value. And we were able to rent it out at a lot more than we could have before. And that gave us a real nice boost during the refinancing period.
So how does appraisal works? Can you explain us the process, the thought process? How does it work? What is your usual process when the appraiser comes to the house? Do you interfere in you cannot legally interfere, but do you walk him and point him the most important things of your house? Again, I think legally you cannot interfere with appraisers, but you're all human beings, right? They can miss some parts, and you can, hey, listen, look, make sure there's 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and this is the finishes that we do. This is what kind of renovation is done. Can you add some point to that?
Well, yes, of course. First of all, every appraisal is different. They all have different approaches to situations. But in general, I come prepared. First of all, you have to find the correct comps. Comps, comparable properties in the area. Those are that decide the outcome, basically. So you have to find correct comps. And first thing I do is I present the comps to the appraiser. I say, hey, I was able to find these comps. Please take a look, use your own judgment, but here they are. And as we walk through the properties, I just point out the things that we've done. Most of the time, they want to know that themselves, but I make sure to mention, oh, look at this faucet, look at this tile. This is a luxury finish, just so they have an understanding of how much work was put into the project and how much heart we put into this. And most of the time it works out well, and the values come back right where we want them. Every once in a while we have to appeal here and there, but usually if you do your analysis right in the first place, you'll be okay.
That was my question. If the numbers come low, can you dispute it? And you just kind of, spoiler alert, you said you can, but how do you do that, Mike?
You find points of disagreement. You go through the report, you'll see where, what the appraiser might have gotten wrong, especially if the appraiser is not familiar with the area. And Trenton is very tricky. Every block is different. So you have to present correct comps. Sometimes they bring their own comps, which don't really work in this particular, scenario. So you have to point that out. You have to write a letter basically explaining your position, and most of the time they will look it over and they'll adjust the price. They'll adjust the value.
Yeah, but technically speaking, if you use a lender, you need to use lender because you don't refinance, and if you want to dispute the appraisal, you have to go through the lender. Step one, reach out to your lender and tell him, hey, listen, this appraisal is not what it should be. I have these facts that argument and they should be much higher. Can you pass this information to the appraiser? And there's two scenarios. Number one, they can go through the process and they can, hey, listen, they can either accept it or reject your facts and say, listen, I don't agree. This is what it is. Sometimes for me personally, it took me back and forth 3 times. I went first with the lenders and I went directly to appraiser and I was arguing with the appraiser back and forth. They're like, first, they just denied it. And then I'm like, no, you cannot deny it. This is a fact. This is a comps. They're like, okay, we can bring in a little bit more. I'm like, no. Just look at this again. This is much higher. And they brought it a little more higher, not as much as I wanted, but they increased like 20,000 to appraised value, which, it's still money on the table, right? There was the whole value of the building was like 200,000. So it was like 10% increase. And I think that was a win. But my biggest appraisal dispute was I think they increased like 80,000 to the value. That was interesting. And it was much easier than fighting for this 20,000. It was the whole different scenario. And what about you? Did you any successful disputes?
I'm actually in the middle of one right now. An appraisal saw a little soul food restaurant next to the property, and for some reason they took it as a negative, even though it's the only restaurant in the area, in the residential area, and they saw it as a negative and they deducted points for that. So this is something that we're trying to dispute right now. We gave the appraisal decent comps. We explained everything. So hopefully, within a couple of days, we will hear back. But we're talking about 25% at least in the value difference because of that. And sometimes even a little amount of money of misappraised property can mean different loan to value ratio, and that could mean different interest rate on your entire loan.
Absolutely, because you not necessarily you want to tap into maximum loan to value ratio, but you want to get that interest rate that you're looking for. Maybe it will be 60 to 40 LTV, and now your rate will be like half a point less, which is substantial on a bigger loans. Okay,
of course.
Let's come back to the flipping side and tell us about your flipping experience nowadays. I know you still flip business houses on a side. while managing property and doing property management and renovations. Talk to us about your experience in flipping and why do you still keep that on if you still building your portfolio?
Well, as I've been growing in my property management business, I've been meeting many other people, and turns out another client of mine has a vision that's almost like mine. We wanted to grow, and she also loves real estate. So we decided to expand on the flipping a little bit. And we look for properties, mostly off market, buy them, flip them, use the same strategy, value add, because again, even if it's not for rent, even if it's for sale, it's also very important to add value to the property. That's what makes it more profitable. Add the bathroom here, add the bedroom there, maybe build a deck, make property stand out. And so this is what we've been doing. In 2024, I believe we did 3 of them. Well, one is still for sale now, and we already started another one in 2025, which is so far the fastest one that I've done. In 1 month, the entire renovation inside was finished. The only thing we're waiting for is the approvals from the township to build the deck.
Wow.
If it wasn't for the slow process of the township, it would have been done by now. But
all this in Mercer County, right? All the projects.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this particular one about Ewing, New Jersey, which is infamous for its efficiency. We can call it that.
Lack of efficiency. Cool. Hey, so I want to ask about margins. I know flipping business is very sexy for newcomers, and they're like, hey, I'm going to flip on the side. I'm going to make a bunch of money. You come into this business from experience, management, operational, and renovations, and you do flipping. What do you think? How about your margins? You do everything in-house. What are your margins? How much are you making on each flip, roughly, on average?
Well, this market is a little bit tricky. Some of them are a little bit more risky. Some of them are less. It could range from $60,000 to $20,000 in margins. Sometimes you have to take on a project to keep your people busy when it's slow. So you might take on a project just to keep going when the margin isn't as big, but you still do something.
Okay. And so it could be from 20 to 60,000. That's what you just said, right?
That's pretty standard across Mercer County. Yes.
And this is with your experience and speed and your connections in the city, because you've been in the city already for many, many years. You know everyone in the city by this point. For newcomers, for people who want to try to do flipping business, what will be your recommendation?
Don't forget holding costs, and don't forget the real estate agent commissions. Some people do forget those. They think, oh, I'm going to sell this house for $250,000. Okay, well, don't forget that there's going to be a commission anywhere from 4 to 6%, depending on who you use. Don't forget about that, because that could eat into your margin, especially if you went over budget in repairs. I would also recommend to plan ahead on what you're going to do. Even I'm guilty of that. I would start the project, and then I begin envisioning more things, and I begin spending more money. Maybe I should add an island here, or maybe I should do this, when I did not have that in the original budget. So I kind of have to wing it every once in a while to see, okay, maybe it's worth to add a little more to attract more buyers.
Okay, but I mean, you develop and you grow. You're not changing the plan completely. You have some budget already. You do have some contingencies, right? You do add some like 5 to 10,000. Or like, I don't know, 5-10% to the budget.
I usually add 10%. Yes.
10% to the budget.
10%.
So you do have some room. And how many flips you done today, roughly?
To this day, I would say around 10 to 15 flips successfully.
15 flips. Plus, you've done a lot of work for other people. From your experience working as a flipping I'm sure you renovated hundreds of properties by this point already. Plus, you've already done completely 10 to 15 flips on your own for your own family. Where do you see how many projects have went over budget? Have you had any projects going in the wrong directions that you're like, oh my God, but at least margins were good enough, but you really spent over your contingency and you spent extra money? How much of a cushion do you really need? Is it 10% enough?
If you don't plan to change anything in the project, 10% is usually enough. But sometimes, you can't prepare for everything. There was this one case. We bought a house. We we did not see 3/4 of the property itself because everything had bamboo. So we bought it not knowing what's behind that bamboo. And when we cut it all down, we spent a couple of $1,000s just cutting it down. We found a swimming pool that we needed to. We knew that there was one, but we had no idea what condition it was in. The original idea was to just backfill it and sell it the house without the pool. But we decided that once we cut down all the bamboo, we found that we had a huge yard, nice yard. There was a shed, and we decided to keep the pool because it was very well built. It had a concrete foundation, and it would be a lot more problematic pulling permits to backfill it and remove it properly than to just fix it and make it operational again. So that cost us some money, but we still stayed within the margins.
How many years wasn't operational, that pool, roughly? It was a couple of years, was students still? Or
couple years, yes. We had to dig up about a foot of dirt from the bottom of it.
Okay.
And there were bullfrogs living in there with the size of my fist.
And how much was it to put it back into operable condition, nice condition? Because you do flip, and so it has to be nice.
Oh yeah, we made it nice, but I didn't have to, hire anybody. I was able to do it in-house. So
it's just a cleanup job, and there is no mechanical issues.
We had to replace the pump. We had to clean all the piping. All the plumbing had to be cleaned. We had to fix the wiring. Some of the things were broken here and there. So I would say that added another $3,000 to $5,000 to the budget.
Wasn't too horrible. And did it give you advantage when you tried to sell the house?
Well, people do like a nice pool, but it's not always an advantage because a pool is always another point of inspection. So when you go under contract, you have to be prepared for private inspections. Every buyer wants to make sure, their house is in top notch. They're buying a nice deal, and a lot of them try to use these inspections as negotiating. So the pool adds another aspect to it. There's another inspection. They test the pool. They want to make sure everything works. So basically that adds another contingency to the sale.
Yeah, makes sense. But what about the number value for that particular property? In your head, like roughly, if you had to backfill it, did it give you more dollar value that you kept it for your customers? Were you able to increase value, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 for that particular property?
By keeping it, I was able to keep the value higher, but at the same time, we added a bathroom and we added a bedroom. So the value went up regardless. The problem is we finished it late fall, and a pool, an empty pool in the barren backyard with no green grass doesn't look that sexy to the buyer, as opposed to if we were listed for sale during summer with green grass and nice blue water. So that was another thing that, we couldn't really have planned it otherwise because we bought it during summer and the entire project took us a couple of months. So I guess that's something you have to keep in your mind, that when you list it for sale, is it the proper season?
Did your buyers look for a property with a pool, or they just take it as a bonus?
Nobody looks for a house with a pool when it's cold outside. That's the last thing they think about, in my personal opinion.
Especially in New Jersey. Oh my God, it's gonna be snowing, so it's gonna fill with.
Yeah, and then they have to keep in mind. Well, a lot of buyers, a lot of agents advise their buyers, and they tell them, okay, there's a pool. You have to keep in mind that it costs money to maintain it. So it's not always
plus.
It's not always a perk.
Yeah. Okay. So do you still do a flipping as a project for someone else? Do you renovate someone else's projects, flipping projects?
I kind of stopped taking on just complete renovation projects with my construction side. I'm focusing more on my own projects because I've gotten quite a few going on. And between property management and between doing my own flips, my team is pretty much always busy with what's going on. But if a client asks, I will gladly take on another project.
So I understand you don't advertise it as a business, but if someone naturally comes to you and asks your expertise and maybe your help with a project, you will potentially can entertain that idea, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not advertising as a general contractor or anything like that. I'm keeping it all inside.
Yep. Okay, so let's move on to property management. Tell us about your property management business. How many units you currently manage, and tell us a little bit more about it.
I'm managing 80 units. That's between single families and apartments, multifamilies. Total of 80 units, 80 doors. One might say it's a challenging business. It's very interesting. It's not dull. There's no day that's the same. You know, it's always something else. It's always something different. That's what keeps it interesting and exciting. And yeah, this is what I do. I make sure tenants are happy. I make sure my clients are happy. I keep the maintenance in house. Every once in a while, I hire external help, but we try to keep all of it to ourselves.
Yeah, if you need a license for a specific project, like electrician, will license and do some work in that, obviously you're gonna hire external help. But tell us more about what kind of units you have. Do you have only residential? Do you also manage commercial? What kind of issues do you have on day-to-day basis operating those units? And is it streamlined right now? What kind of software? Tell us more about your operations.
So a lot of the management is done within the software called AppFolio. It's a beautiful piece. It helps me a lot. It makes my life a lot more easy. I have employees that access their own portion of it. I have maintenance crew that has their own access to it. So we are able to maintain communication pretty efficiently. I manage both commercial and residential. I have 10 commercial units under my wing. Bakeries, laundromats, offices, restaurants, all in the city of Trenton. But at the same time, we have single family houses and multifamily apartment buildings.
Okay. And what do you like more? You like more commercial properties as a commercial tenants, or do you prefer multifamily buildings, one building with multiple apartments? What is easier for you to manage as a property manager?
For me, it's easier with the residential. Commercial properties, they have, some would say they have less regulation, but they're more problematic when it comes to the city approvals, the inspections, insurance requirements. You have to keep in mind a lot more things. You have to make sure the tenant is in compliance with the city regulations. Even though it's not your responsibility, really. It's the responsibility of the tenant. But as a property manager, you have to make sure everything is in compliance, because if they lose their business, you lose business, and then your client loses business.
Okay. And what are the biggest challenges you face during your day-to-day operations?
Well, in our area, the biggest challenge is finding tenants. We have to make sure that they are, good tenant material, if one can say that. The vetting process can be hard. There is a lot of scam going on. Have to make sure people can pay their rent, because this is why we're in this game.
How do you screen tenants? What is your process?
They fill out an application, and basically the only thing that we can do is credit check and employment verification. The state of New Jersey does not allow background checks anymore unless you already offered the property to the tenant. So we can't pre-screen backgrounds.
What? Wow, I didn't know that. I own properties there. So you're not allowed to do background screening for the tenants anymore? So what if there's a criminal with a murder on his background? Like, is it, and I have multifamily building with 10 other tenants, they just made a law that not allowed to do that?
No, you have to offer them the property conditional on their background check. So you check their credit, you check their income. If that satisfies you, you make them an offer. You say, okay, please, you can move in, but we have to check your background. Do you mind? And then you can check their background with their permission, and not all of the crimes that could be found can be grounds of denial.
Okay, but some major crimes it can be, right? So it's
yes. Okay. But if it's something from a very long time ago, something like a third degree crime or administrative thing, then you're not allowed to deny them.
What about evictions? Is it still a ground not to take tenant? Can we still deny the tenant because he has prior evictions on his record?
No, you can't deny based on that.
Nice. Okay, but what helps? Listen, I'm all for second chances, right? And people deserve a good place to live and stay if they can be proven as a normal citizen with a good credit score and credit history and solid job for quite some time. They can prove that they can receive this income regardless of they live here or not. Then. And it qualifies for the ratio, right? So it's, first of all, it's about our policies as landlords that we can pass to you as a property manager and say, hey, listen, we want to accept tenant with at least 700 credit score. This is our preference. And we want to make sure he has at least 6 months of a solid paid job. It has to be 3-to-1 income ratio. Make sure it qualifies. Let's include this. This is mitigate our risk to avoid the evictions in future. This is what you do with other landlords as well? Is it something that we can add?
Yeah, basically the only solid criteria that you can rely on is the credit score. That's something that's legally allowed to be looked at as the main criteria. And believe it or not, but credit score does say a lot about the potential. So that's what we try to go by. But then again, every situation is unique. You see so many stories. You see so many people that you truly believe that are worthy, they can change, and then something happens and they don't. Or at the same time, when you find a good person, a good tenant, they can be a good tenant for 2-3 years, and then something happens and everything is destroyed. You never know. So every tenant, I would say, no matter how much screening you do, it's still a leap of faith.
Yeah, I mean, and situation can change, right? They could be good people, but something changed in their life, and hey, now we have this situation, we have to deal with it. It is what it is. So what is your process on if someone doesn't pay? How do you go? What is the eviction procedure in Trenton, New Jersey, Mercer County in general?
Well, the only legal way to go about it is through court. Of course, you can talk to the person, you can offer them payment plans. If that doesn't work, the only thing to do is going to court, and it takes about 1.5 to 2 months, depending on the time of the year, to get it resolved. A lot of times, I try to help people. This is main things. I don't want to throw people out on the street. So if there are ways to find them help, I will find those ways. There are many organizations in the area that, help with eviction prevention. So I have a list of those organizations. I go to my tenants. I tell them, hey, this is the situation that you're facing. This is what can happen. This is what we can do. Please work with me and basically help me help you. And a lot of times it works out. A lot of times, people go to court and they get help. So this is what I'm trying to do. But of course, there are people that don't want to help themselves. And we have no other choice but to have them, locked out. As cruel as it might sound.
It makes sense, even for landlord, right? If someone, hey, they missed up the payment, but they have a pass right now, new job, and they have a payment plan, how to recover that payments, and now you make you solid. Why go through this process? Now renovating unit, now extracting those tenants and finding new tenants, leases, potentially losing a couple of months of rental income already. If there is a path to help this tenant themselves and to stay in the property.
Exactly. It's not always easier to just kick somebody out. You have to take into consideration the steps you have to take after that, or even during. It's not a fast and quick process.
I like it how you have this very unique experience for property manager who also a flipper, who also a GC, who also have this unique experience of managing your own properties and doing the value adds and creating value. You basically run a full circle of investment into real estate in your market, and now besides not only you managing property, but you can advise what's the best strategy for leasing or the best strategy for even for sale, if they want to sell or flip it, maybe increase the value before sale. I think it's a very unique perspective that you can bring to the table.
Yeah, you can say that. The only thing left is lending.
We'll get to that point. First, let's grow the management business. So let's talk about New Jersey in general, right? You in New Jersey, and New Jersey market is very competitive for real estate investors. How do you find your deals? It's my question number one. And then how do you make them profitable?
Well, yes, it's always about finding the right deal. I work with a lot of wholesalers. I'm on the list of virtually every wholesaler in the area. Now, wholesalers are the people that sell properties off market. before they even hit, the regular MLS or Zillow or something like that. They tend to be a little bit cheaper, a little bit under market because no realtors are involved. So that's some savings right there. And if the deal is right, you always have to find that value add strategy, and every property is unique. As we discussed earlier, maybe add a bathroom, maybe add a deck, maybe add another bedroom somewhere, or maybe even change from oil heat to gas heat. That also makes a lot of difference.
Okay, let's real quick, you touch wholesalers. Who are the wholesalers and how does it work with them? You kind of explained vaguely, but can you a little expand this topic? How does it really work? And where does it come in the picture?
If you ever received a phone call or a text message or a letter saying, "Hey, I was driving by your house, I like it and I want to buy it," that's who they are. Those are wholesalers. They come in, they make you an offer. If you accept an offer to sell your house, then they go and then basically they try to sell that house right away for a little bit more money than they offered you. That's how they make their money, and that's how you save the money.
Investor. But on the technical side, how does it work? Let me help you. And on a technical side, wholesaler is he's a real estate investor. He doesn't have a license. He just a real estate. He want to buy himself properties. But sometimes he just say, "Hey, listen, he already got this property under contract." So he talked to seller directly. He got his property under contract and say, "Hey, listen, a month I'm going to close on this property, a month and a half, whatever they decide to. At this price point, I'll pay you cash." And then he will tap into his network and he "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this project myself. I don't have time or energy to do it. Or maybe I just want to make it a quicker flip." And it's a flip without actually swinging your hammer. So he tap into network and say, "Hey, listen, I have this property under contract. Would you be interested to buy it at this price?" He doesn't disclose how much he put on a contract, obviously, but he does his markup and he's like, "Hey, listen, he found this property for 200,000. He's trying to sell it for 270,000 and his markup will be 70,000 as a property, but market probably shown 300, 350. Sometimes those deals out there and someone needs a quick cash, to move on from the property, and they kind of helping them with this and helping themselves, and then they flip in this property. Usually margins are not that big. For smaller properties, it's more like 10 to 20,000, 30,000 probably, but you got the point. And then on the closing, they either do double close or they do contract assignment to the new buyer. So they're basically saying, "Hey, listen, here's my partner. He will continue this deal. You're still gonna get," they're saying this to the seller, "You're still gonna get your price we discussed, but it's not me who's gonna be at the closing table. It's gonna be Mike at the closing table." And Mike gonna be this flipper contractor who "Hey, listen, I'm just gonna flip this property. I'll make extra 60,000 because I know how to do this right. And I have manpower to do it." And it works out for everyone.
Basically. Yes.
So by doing and accumulating property, doing flips, some people are scared in the different markets and, political part, not political. They're like, "Hey, listen, let me see what's going to happen with the market. We don't know what's going to happen with the tariffs." What is your projection on the market in New Jersey, specifically in your area? What's going to happen? Do you expect any price movement? Do you expect price to go down, go up, or just keep steady as it is right now?
Well, first of all, no one ever really knows what's going to happen. So, it's all matter of the personal experience. From what I see, I think it'll keep steady for a little bit. I just heard the rumor that there might be another interest rate drop come this summer. So I think it might slow down into anticipation of that. We'll see what happens. But, we're not stopping. If there's a deal, I'll take it.
You're looking, at least when you take on flip project, after renovation costs, you're looking 40, 50, 60,000 in profit, right? This is what when you underwrite properties, when you send offer, this is what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the usual timeline on your flips?
The fastest flip that I've ever done was about a month. We bought a property. We bought it really good. It was a fire damage property. We cleaned it out, and I thought to myself, okay, this is worth a lot more now. I just listed it on the market, and we sold it within 2 weeks with like a $20,000 profit just by cleaning it out. Sometimes it's that, or sometimes you have to put in a lot of work into the property, like the one I just told you about with the swimming pool. It took us 4 months it took us about 4.5 months to complete the work. And then it's been on the market for 3 months. For some reason, we hit the bad timing of Christmas, end of December holidays, beginning of January. Everybody's slow. People are adjusting, new year, new me, things like that. And we got an offer on it in February, and it's still under contract. They're still working out their finance. So this is one of the longer ones. Another one I had was during COVID. It took me a year and a half to complete it because it was in Ewing Township, and during COVID, everything was closed. Nobody was working. Everything was remote. And during all that time, we had to pay holding costs. But at the end, we still made around 40,000 on it. So that means we bought it very good.
Yeah, that we had the same situation. At that time we bought 7 unit, and we bought 2 unit. We bought that BD and Hillcrest property at the same time, and it took a year and a couple months to finish the project, but it was 7 years. So, okay. So where do you see your management business growing? Do you plan to expand over 80 units? Do you plan to have 500 units, 100 units? What is your plan for the next year?
I'll take anything that God sends my way, but I'm planning to expand. I'm planning to market. Planning to expand. I would like to get my hands on bigger apartment buildings. We're talking like 20, 30 unit buildings, something like that. I'd like to be able to manage something like that. That's another challenge, and that's another, exciting opportunity.
Okay, I think it's feasible at your scale. You're already at 80 units. To grow on that 20, 30 units wouldn't be a problem. And it's not going to require more manpower to do that at your scale right now. And I think for our listeners, guys, do reach out to Mike. We're going to leave a little later his information in the comment section. So you'll be able to reach out to Mike. And if you have any needs for property manager, do tell him where did you hear about him. Tell him Passive Progress, because we might figure out some promotion for you guys, how you can use it and how you can try his property management services in the best way. Because Mike has a really interesting angle from owner operator and also being an in-house GC of all the properties, and it's his basically bread and butter. Like, are you planning to expand your flipping business as well? Are you comfortable in numbers 3-4 per year?
Well, I definitely would like to. I would like to streamline it a little more. But flipping business is very contingent upon the market. There's only so many houses available for sale, from my experience. Even sometimes hundreds of houses come out for sale. Sometimes it's just dozens.
And do you see still a lot of demand for the housing? Like, you still sell some properties, you still have something going on?
Yeah. They're still being sold. Not as fast as a couple of months ago. It definitely has slowed down, but I think it's because people are waiting for the rate cuts. That's what I think it is. And we're expecting spring market to come in. We'll see what that will be like.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. So you cautiously looking at the market and you realizing, calm-headed, like, hey, where's the market right now? Can we take a little more projects? Or we okay in our lane to having 3-4 flips and slowly growing our property management portfolio and our personal portfolio as well?
One of the things investors are cautious about before buying a flip is, okay, what is this house going to be worth in 3 to 4 months? So, when I'm ready to sell, is the market going to go down? Well, market doesn't go down overnight. You're still going to be able to find comps to accommodate your sale. That's why I really don't want to stop with flips. I'm going to continue flipping. And even in the worst case scenario, if it doesn't sell, you can always rent it out.
Yeah, and here you go. I mean, when I underwrite properties, I make sure I can rent it long term if something goes wrong, and just to keep
If you have to refinance it, the equity is there. You added value. So if you refi, you get that money back.
You always have that backup plan because of your expertise and experience. And Mike, do you do property manager just in Trenton, Mercer County, or how far can you go from that area if someone wants to invest or do property management and ask you for the services?
Right now, I'm in Mercer County. I am trying to expand into Burlington County. It's a whole new market, which I am closely monitoring, and we've actually looked at a couple of properties there for ourselves. So that's somewhere that I'm willing to expand.
Very good. And what is the best way to reach out to you, Mike? If someone Again, doesn't matter if it's flipping or if it's a property management or just an advice. What is the best way to connect with you?
There's my email, lion.for.mgt@gmail.com, or, there's my Lion Poor Management profile on Instagram and my Facebook profile. It has links to communicate with me. Send me a message, call me.
Yeah, sounds good. And we're going to, again, as I mentioned, we're going to leave all the links in the comment section. Maybe we'll drop on the screen if it's possible. But yeah, I think it's, again, whatever platform you guys choose, feel free to reach out to Mike. He's a rock solid guy, and his company is growing in the right direction. And what's more important, I think it's a personal touch, right? It's not those big companies that lose the touch of a client, of a relationship. It's still going to be managed on a personal level. With Mike personally and overseeing, of course, you're going to grow, you're going to hire more people to support him on this journey. But what's important is like mom and pop operation, family owned operation, which nowadays I see a lot of value of, and having this relationship and growing it to something bigger in the future.
And you have to understand that property management is not only about keeping the property operational and safe. It's also about tenant retention. You have to be the mediator, basically, between the tenant and the property owner, because both parties need to be happy in order for this business to be successful.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I think it's one of the key points, right? And we talked about it, but it's, in the end of the day, it's cheaper to keep tenants than keep rotating them and renovating each time. I'd rather have one tenant for living there for 10 years, 20 years, and not to think about all of this renovation hustle and new lease and wasted time on the rental. Mike, I think we covered everything. We are at our timeline, and I do appreciate your time. It's been awesome having you on the show and getting all this inside information from the trenches, let's say.
It's been great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And see you next time, everyone. Subscribe if you want to see or hear more of our content.